when you grapple with the state of the exception. On an imaginary fact condemned to be both truth and deception, you dwell in a Rilkean affirmation, reveling in or on the question. Is it resolution we seek, or is it a meek's life, waiting, patiently debating what's ours for the taking right now? One could, if one wishes, steal a line from Eminem and attempt to lose oneself in the music, making the most of this opportunity that comes but once in a lifetime. Might switch gears and embrace a Socratic dictum, pursuing a life of self-interrogation, following a calling that tells us that the unexamined life's not fit to be called a human life. Recognizing this, we forego the I to embrace the we, even though consequences aren't consequences desired. Why? Because desire and desirable, although undoubtedly related, aren't equal. They pose as substitutes only to those whose mindless affirmations are automatically generated. But, and I say but, what you might not consider is that freedom and potentia resides in the most unlikely of places, where to accept the philosophical burden is the difference between life and death. A burden accepted only by the courageous, neither the bombastic nor the iconoclastic. Courage to affirm life, holding tight to a dream, not as escape, but as a necessary drape which masks and conceals all that which is revealed in the depths of our minds and, yes, our hearts. The heart disclosing discerningly what a mind cannot know. We are not simply actors in a contrived story told by someone other than me. I am because I choose to be, choosing to affirm this thing we call life faithfully, determinedly, and mindfully, even when the contradictory tones play in my head. I am because I choose to focus my attention on what I perceive to be the world's greatest need. Not because it's a life I think I ought to choose, but because it's a life that's chosen me. Not as destiny chooses unwittingly or as chaos chaotically creates, but as love makes manifest each day. That in spite of the contingency of it all, I will aspire to live in love, however imperfectly, as if everything I do is of necessity. So I stand before you humbly today, giving thanks that you've chosen to spend part of your eternity with me. Thank you very much. How many of you seen a president do that? No hands in the house. So that's a piece I wrote 2 years ago. I was working with 15 men in a correctional facility outside of Columbus, Ohio. And if you were paying attention, freedom and potentia resides in the most unlikely of places. And what I've learned working in correctional facilities now for well over a decade is that there are men and women dying to be engaged. And I think it's one of the things that I hold firmly, that choosing a life of service is absolutely critical if we want to live a fully human life, absolutely essential to us. And it's one of our commitments here at St. Francis College to ensure, even if you're a financier, you understand what it means to be devoted to others. Absolutely critical. So we're going to pick up the pace and find out how many philosophers we have in the house. Do we have any philosophers at this table? No. How many philosophers? Romello, put your hand down, brother. He's one of ours. I'm allowed to talk to him that way. How many? I can't see. Do you hear the question? Can you understand what I'm saying? How many philosophy majors do we have in the house here? Aside from Romello. In the green, where? You are? No, she is? You're really not? She says, I gotta tell you, why? What do you mean you're really not? Why not? Let's stand up. Come on, stand up. Stand up. Here you go. Give her a round of applause. She says, I just been ambushed.
I'm not a philosophy major, prospectively. I'm sorry. My sister lied to you.
Oh, I remember you.
Yeah.
Oh, chemical engineering. Yeah, oh, I remember you. Ariana, that was cold. You should be a philosophical chemical engineer. I had an opportunity to meet her. When was that, in October? October. So no philosophers in the house? No? Why not? You don't know what? You got to put it. Let me give you a word of advice. I try to give this advice all the time. You got to make eye contact. If you make eye contact, I may not pick you. If you put your head down, I'm going to pick you for sure. So that's important. So why not? She says, I'm going to give you, she doesn't know, it just didn't interest her. What is it that didn't interest you about philosophy? I know you said that already. Now you're repeating yourself. What about it? Okay, what's philosophy? What is the it? Just for the record, she said, I don't know. She's like, God, why did you just go away? I can feel it. She's, all right, but here's the first lesson. I'm going to learn you a couple of things. Here's the first one. Keep an open mind. If you don't know what something is, don't say you don't want it. Right? And most of you here are saying, I'm not doing philosophy. You don't even know what it is. Right? And then you're insulting me on top of that because my PhD's in philosophy. And we can have a conversation later. The other thing I want to do is dispel a myth. Had you raised your hand, that's past tense, understand that? Everybody should understand that. Had you raised your hand, I would have given you a book scholarship if you were going to major in philosophy. So when they tell you philosophy doesn't pay, they're lying to you. It would have paid right there. So that's another thing. Don't believe the conventional wisdom. Right? Don't believe the conventional wisdom because it's usually misleading. Somebody else giving you an excuse for why you ought not pursue your passion. Has somebody heard the expression, and this is for the young people, has somebody heard the expression, children are sponges? Yeah? Who say yes? No, but you're not so young person. What young person's heard that expression? That's good. She's good. Oh, you've heard it too. I'm going to give you something. Work her. She's got good eye contact. That was impressive. You have? Okay, so you're going to tell us what. So everybody understand where we are? She's going to explain to us why we use that metaphor, right? Okay.
Okay, so basically when they say that, they mean that children pick up and absorb everything that we hear and see.
I like that we hear. So she's still thinking she's childlike. And that's important. I'm going to get to that in a minute. No, that's good. All right, let's think about what that says. So children are sponges, right? What's a sponge do? Huh? Absorbs. You're engaged. I like this. Absorb, right? So we're not going to do it. Rob, you got a sponge? We should get we should do this. I'm going to do this one day. They don't know what I'm doing. And anytime I get the microphone, they don't know what I'm going to do. And we're going to put a sponge here. Can I use your purse? Can I open it to find out what's in it? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So let's pretend we got a cup of water. You have a cup? No, I don't want your cup. All right, what's in here? All right, so this is what we're going to do, right? Think about this. Listen, there are gems here. Pay attention. This is what we do, right? There's a sponge, right? Use your imagination. A nation with no imagination. Okay, that's a different piece, but we pour water, and what happens? Huh? It falls. What falls? The water falls, and what happens? Come on, describe it. It doesn't spill all over the place. I got a sponge. What's that sponge doing? Huh? It's absorbing it, right? It's absorbing it. Now let me ask you a question. Is that what children are like? Are children actually like a sponge? That sponge is passive. That sponge ain't moving. You ever been in a kindergarten classroom? You've been in a kindergarten classroom, right? I'm going to tell you what, that metaphor does not work because those children are not sitting there while people pour stuff into their minds. It's absolutely false. And it's one of the biggest disservices that we've done to thinking about what it means to learn. The reason that young kids, children, childlike people learn is because they are actively engaged in the world. That's why they learn, not because they're passive, right? They're not soaking stuff up. For parents, I know there's parents here, right? I'm a philosophy guy, so I like the why statement, but we always say, God, I wish my child would start, why? That's why they learn. How, what, when? They ask you all these sorts of weird questions. What are they doing? They are not behaving like a passive sponge. Because if they were, I'm going to show you something. They would not be learning. The only reason that they learn with the pace that they do is because they're inquisitive, they're curious, they ask questions, and they're not afraid to get it wrong. This is another critical piece. All right? They're not afraid to get it wrong. One of the things you've probably heard also is that adults can't learn a second or third or fourth language. Somebody heard that? Anybody heard that? You heard too? Good eye contact. Who's heard that? You're like, I'm not going to raise my hand because he's going to pick me. Okay, so have you heard that? You have, right? So why don't you raise your hand? You don't want to. You don't want to be. You don't want to. Okay. Why is it that you know what I'm talking about? Why is it that people say, oh, as you're an adult, you can't learn another language? Why do they say that? Do you know? Oh, geez, that was cold. She said this: old dogs can't learn new tricks. Let me just be clear that that was not me, that was her, okay? We're going to keep you sitting down. I don't want some of the old dogs to get upset at you. But really, we have all these explanations, and I'm going to tell you what, they're false. The reason that adults have difficulty acquiring new languages is because they're not immersed in adopting a new language. And you also work in translation. But I'm going to tell you, it doesn't matter where you're from, but if I got you singularly and dropped you in an environment where nobody spoke your language and they all spoke the same language, you would learn the language at the same pace that a child learns a new language. You would, because that's the kind of human animals we are. We learn, we adapt, right? And you figure it out. We're all language learners. This isn't like a news flash. It just happens to be that if you're an adult, you got a job, and let's say you're an adult in the U.S. and you got a job, you go to work, what do you speak? English. You go home, you speak English, and then you try to get on Rosetta Stone and, oh, me llamo, and you start telling these things, right? ¿Cómo está? Muy bien. No. Oh, sí, señor. Hola, ¿qué tal? Yo me llamo. I actually don't speak that way. But we can switch gears if you all want to, right? But this is a critical piece. So your life is basically in English. That's why you're not learning the other language. A child learns the language immersed in the language. That's why you can learn multiple languages all the time. They also learn it representatively and developmentally. You're trying to learn a language and you're trying to figure out, I'm going to go to Paris and I need to find out how it is that I'm going to ask what the, je voudrais manger ce soir, je ne sais pas où, right? You start getting all nervous, right? A kid doesn't care. A kid starts just saying stuff. They just say whatever comes to mind. Failure has to be an option, but it's also immersion. So what I'm trying to get y'all to see is that the myths that you've been told are really problematic in terms of you trying to acquire and to learn new skills and new ways of living in the world. So I ought to say this, young people especially, if you want to learn another language, you know what you want to do? You want to go by yourself into an environment where nobody speaks your target language. And you want to do it for 4 months. And I'm going to tell you what, when you come back, you're going to be speaking a different language. Right? You might not be fully fluent, but you will certainly be conversational because you're not going to have any choice but to be conversational. And all of us, and we'll be clear about this, all of us have the ability to do that by virtue of the fact that we're human beings. Right? By virtue of the fact that we're human beings. Okay, last point. I'm getting a hook. I can see it. I can feel it. They didn't put a clock in here, so that was bad for them. I've neglected the right side of the room, haven't I? I have, haven't I? Have I neglected the right side of the room? I have. But which is the right side of the room? Yeah, all right, depends on your perspective. That's another one. Keep in mind, it depends on your perspective, right? So the last thing I want to tell you is, so what are the lessons today? Do you remember? You remember the lessons? No, neither do I. I'm kidding. The last thing I want to tell y'all something is you have an opportunity to choose. I want you to listen. This is the most important one. You have an opportunity to choose the life that you want to live. Okay? I want to say that again. You have the opportunity to choose the life that you want to live. 99% of the people on the planet don't have that opportunity. I'm going to try to put this in perspective. Again, you have the opportunity to choose the kind of life you want to live, and 99% of the people on the planet don't have that choice. My parents were immigrants. My dad worked a job that he did not want to work his whole life so that me and my brothers could choose to live the life that we wanted to live. And had we not done that, it would have been disrespectful to his sacrifice. I think it's even stronger. It's disrespectful for all human beings that don't have a choice. We provide that hope when we choose to live the lives that we want to live. It's disrespectful when we don't. Because I'm going to tell you what, working with incarcerated folks, and I've worked in detention centers with juveniles and with grown men and women, they are counting on us to choose to live the kind of lives that they could not choose to live. We have an obligation, absolute obligation, and that means that we got to find what we're passionate about. My dad died, I was quite young. He died when he was 63 years old. And a friend of his came to my house, again, an immigrant, man who actually never learned to speak English. But at that time, he was able to negotiate a space, multimillionaire. And he said something to me. I was struggling. And he said, do whatever you're going to do and do it well. And the money comes. The biggest mistake you can do is chase the money. I'm not telling you that economics doesn't have a rightful place in your thinking and acting, but it has a place only. It's not the full of it. Find what you're passionate about. Choose to live the life that you want to live. You owe it to folks that have made sacrifices to ensure you're here in this space. Absolutely critical. And now really as I take my seat, you're probably thinking he said that like 4 times. I want to tell you one thing that I want to urge you to do. Those are lessons. One thing I want you to do. One of the things we're here, you can see we are out in mass. And the reason we're out in mass is because we want you to get a feel for the kind of place we are. We want you to get a feel for the kind of people that work here. We want you to get a feel for the students that are here so you can engage in a process of discernment. This is one of the most important decisions that you're going to make about your future. And what we want to do is provide you the information that allows you to make that choice well. So do yourselves a favor, ask us questions, push at us, get a feel if this is the kind of place that can be a platform for you to live the life that you want to live. Thank you very much.